This is Mr. Wright. Today we're going to be talking about midpoint. So the midpoint is a point on a segment that is the same distance from each endpoint, represented by this formula. Midpoint, what I think of is like middle point. So if you have a segment, the very middle of it, this is called the midpoint. This is my formula. It pretty much says you add your x's together, my first x and my second x, I add those together and divide by 2 to figure out the halfway point of the x's. Add your y's together, divide by 2 to figure out the halfway point of the y's. Your answer is going to be an ordered pair, so an ordered pair has 2 numbers. So you do those calculations separately, write your answer in parentheses separated by a comma. So let's do 2 examples. Because we have these special characters, x1, x2, y1, y2, I'm going to label the points that same way. So my first ordered pair, I'm going to call that x1, y1. My second ordered pair, I'm going to call it x2, y2. So it's just saying this is my first point, that's the first x, that's the first y, that's my second point, that's the second x, that's the second y. That's all that those numbers mean. If I had a third point, I would call it x3, y3. So all we have to do now is plug in those numbers into my formula. So we're going to do 2 separate calculations. Let's do the x's first. So I'm going to do 6 plus 12, x1 plus x2. So when you're evaluating this, you have to do the addition before you divide. So I'm going to do 6 plus 12, that's 18. 18 divided by 2 equals 9. Then you do the same thing for the y's. My y values are -3 and 5. You're adding those 2 numbers together, -3 plus 5 divided by 2. So you add first, -3 plus 5 is 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So once you come up with both numbers, you actually have to write your answer as an ordered pair. So the answer is actually 9, 1 in parentheses. That's the answer. That would be the middle point between those 2 points. Let's look at one more example. So first you add your x's together, -15 plus -1 divided by 2. Just add the top numbers, -16 divided by 2 equals -8. And you do the same thing for the y's. -3 plus -22 divided by 2. So sometimes with this one, you're going to end up with a decimal. That's okay. So I get -12.5. So my answer would be -8, -12.5. So your answer, again, is an ordered pair. So you put both numbers together in parentheses separated by a comma. One strategy sometimes I see students use to kind of make this a little bit easier is they can just kind of they know they have to add the x's together, so you can draw like an arrow to those 2 x's. So -7 plus -13, I know I'm adding those, I get -6. And then take that, divide by 2, I get -3. Then I do the same thing with the y's. -5 plus 8 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So you're just using like little lines to connect what you're adding together, add it together, divide by 2. Do one more. 9 plus 20 is 29. 29 divided by 2 is 14.5. Now you do the y's, -8 and -16. If I add those together, I get -24 divided by 2 is -12. There's my answer.